Translate this, and my salary is yours. The room froze. The words came from Charles Dunbridge, CEO of Halcyon International, a man whose voice usually settled boardrooms like a gavel. But today his tone sliced through the tension with surgical disdain. He tossed a crumpled printout onto the glass table, a dense Japanese legal clause no one had managed to decode for 3 straight hours. Executives looked away. Assistants hid behind their screens. No one dared to pick it up, except the woman in the corner. She wore a red t-shirt, faded at the seams, and a white apron stained with coffee and dust. She'd been cleaning the edge of the conference room moments before, invisible, ignored, like most days. Until now. Maya Carter didn't move right away. She looked at the paper as if it were a challenge thrown from a mountaintop. Then, quietly, she stepped forward. Charles smirked. The cleaning lady wants to try? A few snickers. One executive stifled a laugh. Another checked his phone, already anticipating the awkwardness. Maya picked up the paper. Her eyes moved across the characters, not with hesitation, but with fluency. Then she spoke. Exclusive rights to adaptive artificial intelligence shall revert to the original developer after 24 calendar months, contingent upon non-violation of Clause 3.7b. The room fell silent. Then she kept going. In the event of breach, jurisdiction shall fall under Tokyo civil arbitration, and all derivative algorithms will be considered intellectual extensions of the initiating code owner. Charles blinked. An executive whispered, "That's not what our draft says." "No," Maya replied, turning to him. "Because your draft misreads derivative algorithms as shared outputs. That opens a loophole wide enough to sink your AI patent into public domain." The general counsel stood up. "Wait, how do you know this?" Maya didn't flinch. "Because I wrote the original clause. Or rather, I helped write the framework 6 years ago. I was part of the interlingual legal advisory for the Tokyo Protocol." Dead silence. Charles stepped forward, his smirk faltering. "That's impossible. What are you doing cleaning our floor?" Maya folded the paper neatly and placed it on the table. "You don't remember me. That's fine. You weren't meant to." She turned to leave. But Charles wasn't done. "Wait," he said, this time with something like urgency. "If what you're saying is right, we've already sent this version to the Geneva group. The contract is signed, final." Maya paused. "Then you've just agreed to surrender control of your AI core to a private research firm in Osaka for the next 15 years. The head of international compliance turned pale. Charles looked like a man watching his fortune burn from behind bulletproof glass. He tried to recover. "We'll pay you. We'll fix this. Name your salary." Maya looked back at him. "I don't want your salary." "Then what do you want?" She exhaled, a breath she'd held for years. "I want the truth to matter again." And with that, she walked out, her reflection rippling across the polished floors she used to mop in silence. The boardroom didn't move for a full minute. Outside, Maya stepped into the sunlight, not as a ghost of a forgotten expert, but as the woman who had just shaken the very foundation of the building she used to clean. She walked 3 blocks without looking back. The world around her was loud, car horns, laughter, metal shutters rolling down on small cafes, but inside, Maya heard only quiet. A silence she had earned. She remembered a time when her words moved policy, when she'd flown business class to conferences that now treated her like a service number. But those days ended not with disgrace, but something crueler: erasure. She had raised a red flag on a translation 2 years before she was let go, a subtle change in a clause that handed too much control to a defense contractor. When she pressed the issue, she was called overzealous, then unstable. And just like that, her credentials dissolved under whispers. Her husband, or rather ex-husband, seized the moment. With his family's influence and a sympathetic judge, he claimed she was unfit to raise their daughter. Emotional instability, they said. Career collapse. No income. They painted her as an unmoored woman drowning in paranoia. He won full custody. And then he moved to Texas. Maya hadn't seen her daughter in 5 years. Her chest tightened at the thought. Not with fresh pain, it had long settled, but with the coldness of truth endured. And now, that same truth had returned. Not as revenge, but as restoration. She pulled her phone from her apron and opened the email app. Nothing new. A few cleaning shift reminders, a coupon from the grocery store, and one draft. A letter she had written months ago, unsent. To my daughter. I know you've been told I left. I didn't. I was erased. I hope one day you'll read my words and feel who I really am. Not what they said I was. She hit save. Not send. Not yet. At the end of the block, she turned right, toward the train station. Geneva wasn't just a possibility anymore. They were calling. And this time she might just answer. But not because they wanted her. Because she remembered who she was. The phone rang at 3:07 a.m. Not the buzzing kind that stirs you awake gently. No, this was the old landline in Maya's studio apartment. Wired, unrelenting, and angry with purpose. She sat up before she knew why. The instinct came from an earlier life. The kind where phone calls at ungodly hours often meant global urgency, diplomatic chaos, or the quiet panic of words misunderstood across borders. She answered on the 4th ring. "This is Maya." There was a pause, a breath held too long. Then, "Ms. Carter, this is Julian Hirsch from the Department of Multilateral Affairs. We need your help." Maya's fingers tightened around the receiver. The name was familiar. She remembered Julian from late-night negotiations in Brussels, always one espresso short of functional. He hadn't spoken to her since the day they revoked her clearance. "I'm not available for translation work anymore," she said. Her voice was calm but brittle. "I mop floors now." "We know. We saw the clip." Maya closed her eyes. "It wasn't meant to go viral," she murmured. "It wasn't," Julian said, "until it became evidence that someone in Geneva might have tampered with the AI agreement you exposed. The clause you translated, it vanished from the version we signed." Maya stood, one hand on the window frame. Outside, dawn was a rumor on the horizon. "You want me to clean up your mess again?" she asked. "No," Julian said. "We want you to tell us if it was ever yours." By 8 a.m., she was on a plane to Geneva. She didn't pack much, just a small bag, the faded red t-shirt, and a folder with every clause she'd ever written, annotated in the margins with a precision no algorithm could mimic. Her passport still worked. Some access codes had expired. Others, mysteriously, hadn't. In the window seat, Maya watched clouds drift like unspoken sentences. She didn't feel triumphant, not even vindicated. She felt returned. Like a piano string tuned after years of silence, still fragile, but vibrating with potential. At the airport, an aide met her with a clipboard and a warning. "They don't want you here. Some say you're a liability. Others, well, let's just say they didn't expect a janitor to understand interlingual arbitration law." Maya smiled without warmth. "They never do." The Geneva complex hadn't changed. Glass walls, polished stone, a constant hum of too many languages in a single hallway. But her name tag was different now. It read, Consultant, Observer Only. In the translation booth, Maya was paired with Clara, the youngest interpreter on site. Nervous, brilliant, and reverent in a way that made Maya uncomfortable. "I read your Tokyo notes," Clara whispered. "You mapped ambiguity like it was math." "I mapped it," Maya said, "so they couldn't exploit it." First session. A dispute between two nations over algorithmic sovereignty. A mistranslation of learning authority versus teaching ownership had sparked a 2-week standoff. Maya adjusted her headset. Her breath slowed. Words flowed, not perfect, but true. And when the final clause came, Clara froze. "That's not the version we agreed on." Maya's stomach dropped. She scanned the line. One phrase, subtle, precise, had been restructured to shift liability entirely onto the developer. Clara whispered, Did you write that?" Maya shook her head. "No," she said, "and someone's betting I won't say otherwise." She stood, quietly, walked out of the booth. And for the first time in years, every translator turned to watch her leave. Not as a ghost, but as a reckoning. The news hit within hours. Not through press releases, not through any official channel, but through the quiet, ruthless machinery of whispers that powered international halls. She walked out. She said the clause wasn't hers. They brought back the janitor? By noon, Maya's name, once erased, was now echoing through rooms that had long pretended she never existed. In the Geneva cafeteria, she sat alone with a bowl of lentil soup, staring out at a fountain still half frozen in spring. The badge clipped to her sweater still read, Observer, but it no longer felt invisible. Clara slid into the seat across from her. "You realize they're all watching you now, right?" "I've been watched before," Maya said, not lifting her spoon. "Not like this." Clara leaned in. "Some are nervous, some are angry, but one guy from legal said, if she's right, we just signed away algorithmic sovereignty for half of Europe." Maya nodded slowly. "They should be nervous." She pulled a folded document from her coat. "This is the clause I submitted. Here's the digital timestamp. Here's their altered version." Clara skimmed it. Her eyes widened. They didn't just reword it. They redirected liability entirely. Maya nodded again. Someone wanted the public version to appear balanced, while the legal version, filed quietly, shifted all risk onto the developers. "Who benefits?" Clara asked. Maya looked out the window. "Who always benefits when truth gets buried?" In the afternoon, she was called into a private office. Not by Julian this time, but by Vivian Sloan, head of arbitration oversight. She was sharp, silver-haired, and had the presence of a retired general who now commanded silence instead of soldiers. "I've reviewed your documents," Vivian said, "and if what you're implying is true, this is no longer an internal mistake. This is an international scandal." Maya met her gaze. "Then why aren't you holding a press conference?" Vivian didn't blink. "Because we're still verifying." "You're buying time." Vivian leaned back. "We're buying clarity. You know better than anyone. Jump too soon, and the narrative owns you. Wait too long, and it buries you." Maya nodded. "So which will it be?" Vivian sighed. "If this clause was changed post-translation, we'll need to prove chain of custody." "I kept a copy," Maya said. "Time-stamped, signed." "Then you're about to become very inconvenient to some very powerful people." That evening, Clara knocked on Maya's door at the guest quarters. "They've suspended my access," she said breathlessly. Maya looked up. "What?" "They said it's a technical error, but my badge stopped working. My emails are locked. I think they saw me talking to you." Maya took a deep breath. The machine had started grinding its gears. "They'll try to isolate you," Maya said. "Make you doubt. Make you afraid." Clara's voice trembled. "Are you?" Maya stood, walked to her suitcase, and pulled out a manila envelope. "Here," she said. "Everything I have. If they lock me out too, at least you'll still know the truth." Clara clutched it like it was made of fire and glass all at once. "You're not just a translator, are you?" she asked. Maya smiled faintly. "Translation was never about words. It's about intent. And right now, someone's intent is to rewrite reality." At midnight, alone in her room, Maya opened her laptop and wrote a single sentence in a new draft. "They erased me once, they won't do it again." The screen glowed pale blue in the darkened conference room. On it, projected before a silent panel of 6 arbitration officials, was the clause in question, neatly formatted, legally airtight, and utterly foreign. Maya leaned forward, her voice steady. "This is not the document I translated." No one spoke. Even the stenographer hesitated, unsure whether to type or pray. The revised clause on display placed sole liability for algorithmic bias and unintended outcomes on the original developer, regardless of post-deployment tampering. It was brutal, absolute, and, if signed, legally binding across 23 countries. Julian sat beside her, jaw tight. "That's not what we approved." "No," Maya said. "It's what someone inserted." Vivian Sloan, head of oversight, tapped a pen against her pad. "We've reviewed your time-stamped submission. Your version placed mutual responsibility between the implementer and creator. This," she nodded to the screen, "this is surgical sabotage." "And no one noticed until now?" Maya asked. A woman at the end of the table said flatly, "Because we weren't looking. The changes were buried inside a mirrored drive archive with identical file names. Only the metadata shows a revision timestamp, 12 hours before the signing ceremony." Julian swore under his breath. "And who had access to that archive?" Vivian asked. The tech analyst beside her replied, "Less than a dozen people. But there's a complication." He clicked, and another name appeared on screen. Clara M. Ellison. Access logged 2:04 a.m. Maya's chest seized. "No," she said. "She was with me. She didn't—" "She says she doesn't remember logging in," the analyst said gently. "Her badge was used, her credentials accepted, but she claims she was asleep." Julian turned to Maya. "Could she have been set up?" Maya's voice was quiet. "That's exactly what I'd do if I wanted to frame someone invisible." Clara sat across from Maya hours later, hands trembling around a teacup. "I don't understand. I never accessed that archive. I didn't even know it existed." "You didn't," Maya said, "but your badge did." Clara's eyes brimmed with tears. "They're going to blame me, aren't they?" Maya handed her a sealed envelope. "Inside is a copy of the access log metadata before it was redacted. You're not alone." "But why me?" Clara whispered. "Because you're close to me, and you still believe in what we do. That makes you dangerous to them." Clara looked up. Then what do we do now? Maya stared at the window. Snow was beginning to fall. We do what translators have always done. We carry meaning across impossible gaps. She stood. And we make sure the truth gets where it was meant to go. That evening, Maya walked the snowy streets of Geneva alone, her coat thin against the wind. Memories of another winter rose up unbidden. Her daughter, age 7, asking if snowflakes had accents. Maya had smiled, brushing snow off the girl's curls. Of course they do. Everything does. The trick is listening long enough to tell. She hadn't seen her daughter in 5 years. Now, walking through foreign streets lit with amber light, Maya felt time warping. Not back to who she was, but forward into who she might yet be again. Outside the arbitration building, she paused. Her reflection shimmered in the glass doors, coat damp, hair windblown, but her gaze steady. Behind her, Geneva ticked on like a silent machine. Inside, the document was still active, still dangerous, still signed, but not yet irreversible. She stepped back into the building. This time, she wasn't alone. Clara walked beside her, wordless, determined. Are you sure? Maya asked. No, Clara replied, but I believe you, and that's enough. Vivian met them in a secured briefing room, smaller than the last, but no less tense. We've reviewed the backup logs, Vivian said. There's evidence of cloned badge access, internal rerouting. Someone spoofed her credentials. Maya arched an eyebrow. So what happens now? We stall the enactment of the clause, Vivian said, quietly, and launch a formal inquiry. And if they try to bury it again? Vivian looked tired, older than she had that morning. Then we make noise loud enough to shake the marble in this place. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a handwritten note. This is the original clause, the one we fought for, the one that protected both sides. Vivian read it, slowly, reverently. Then she looked up. Would you be willing to testify? Maya didn't hesitate. Yes. Clara stepped forward too. And me. The room fell silent. This time the silence wasn't fear. It was beginning. That night, Maya sat on the balcony of the guest quarters, watching snow cover the rooftops like forgiveness. She opened her email. Her draft letter to her daughter was still unsent. But this time, she didn't just save. She began to type. Today, I stood up for something small that meant something big. I don't know if the world will hear it, but I want you to know I remembered how to speak again. She hit send, then watched the snow fall, wordless, honest, and finally, hers. It wasn't supposed to be found. The printout had no digital trail, no official stamp, just a folded piece of paper jammed between volumes of outdated arbitration manuals in the restricted section of the Geneva Records Archive. But Maya found it. She hadn't been looking for it, at least not consciously. She had been walking the rows out of instinct, out of muscle memory from years when knowledge was something she retrieved with her hands, not with passwords. And there it was, a clause, a paragraph. The real one, her version. Clara stood beside her, breath visible in the chilled air. Is this it? Maya didn't answer. She read, slowly. Then again. Yes, she whispered. This is the original clause. The one that had been erased. By noon, they had it scanned, time-stamped, and notarized by a sympathetic archivist Maya once trained 10 years prior. She didn't ask why the woman helped. The woman didn't offer. Only said, "They thought you disappeared." Maya looked her in the eye. They were wrong. Later that day, in the pressurized calm of the arbitration hearing chamber, Maya stood in front of the tribunal. Her badge now read, "Witness." She wasn't nervous, not in the usual way. She was something else now, something closer to steady fire. Vivian Sloane sat to the left, Julian to the right, Clara behind her, fingers clenched. Maya raised the paper. "This is the clause I submitted," she said. This version was erased from official records 24 hours before the signing of the AI Sovereignty Accord. She paused. "And this," she pointed to the screen, where the altered clause glared back, "was inserted in its place, without legal consent, without protocol, without integrity." The panel of arbitrators didn't move. Their silence felt heavy, as if history itself waited to see which way they would lean. One finally spoke. "You are accusing the Oversight Committee of international fraud." "I'm accusing someone," Maya said, "of making sure truth had no translator." A hush spread, then scribbles, then murmurs, then motion. It had begun. That evening, Maya and Clara sat in the park across from the arbitration building, benches damp from melted snow. "It's not over," Clara said. "No," Maya replied, "but it's not buried either." Clara turned to her. "What if they don't do anything?" "Then we do." Maya pulled a folder from her coat. Inside, a letter to a journalist. Copies of every version of the clause, logs, metadata, witness statements. "This is our truth," Maya said. "If the tribunal won't act, the world will." And for the first time in years, Maya Carter smiled. Not with bitterness, not with irony, but with belief. And far away, in a small town in Texas, a 12-year-old girl named Layla opened her inbox. There, waiting, was a message from a name she barely remembered. Subject, "For when you're ready." She opened it. One line. "I never stopped listening to the sound of your voice." Below it, an attachment. A video clip. Her mother standing before the world, holding a piece of paper that refused to be erased. Layla watched it twice. Then she clicked reply. She didn't know what she would write yet, but for the first time she wanted to. The surveillance footage should have been erased. Maya Carter's badge had been deactivated months ago. Her clearance codes were void. Her identity, for all administrative purposes, no longer existed. Yet there she was, caught in frame, time-stamped, and irrefutable, walking into the archive vault at 7:12 a.m., the morning before her testimony. A woman who, according to official records, was not supposed to exist. Vivian slammed the printed still onto the conference table. "Explain this," she said. Julian blinked at the grainy image. "We didn't authorize her access." "You didn't," Maya said calmly. "But someone did." They turned to her. She stood at the far end of the room, backlit by morning light filtering through frosted glass. "I didn't hack my way in," Maya said. "I used a code buried in an old emergency override protocol. It's outdated, obsolete. But nobody thought to erase it." Vivian narrowed her eyes. "That code was only issued to one person." "I know," Maya replied. "Thomas Graves, my former husband." The room chilled. Julian leaned forward. "He was head of cyber ethics compliance when you were removed." Maya nodded. "He also filed the complaint that ended my career." Vivian's voice was ice. "You accessed the archives under your ex-husband's clearance?" No, Maya said. I accessed them under mine. He never changed the password. Silence. Then Clara, softly, he wanted you to find it. Maya looked down. I don't know what he wanted. I only know what he destroyed. That evening, Maya stood outside a high-rise in Zurich. Not part of the tribunal, not government. Private, corporate, unregulated. Inside, Thomas Graves sat at the top floor in an office of chrome and glass, pretending the past didn't exist. Maya didn't knock. He looked up. She didn't give him time to speak. You used me, she said. Thomas said nothing. You erased me, took our daughter, buried my work, then used my silence to build your empire. Still, he said nothing. Until finally, you were too dangerous to be left in the system. Maya exhaled, slow. And now? He stood, walked to the window. Now it's all falling apart, because you came back. I didn't come back, Maya said. I was found. He turned to her. You think truth will save you? No, she said, but it'll bury you. She placed a folder on his desk, copies of the tampered clause, the access logs, and a single photo, him, signing the override order. I'm not here to threaten you, she said. I'm here to witness you. She left without another word. The next morning, a motion was filed at the tribunal to reopen the entire AI Accord review process, not just because of the clause, but because the woman who exposed it wasn't supposed to exist, and yet she did. Unbroken, unwelcome, and undeniably real. That afternoon, Clara found Maya sitting alone at a quiet cafe near Lake Geneva. Her tea had gone cold. Her fingers tapped nervously on a paper napkin. He didn't even flinch, Maya murmured. Clara sat down. Thomas? Maya nodded. He looked at me like I was a project he'd already archived. You rattled him. I don't want revenge, Maya said. I just want the erasure to stop. Clara said nothing. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a copy of the tribunal motion. Maya hadn't seen it yet. Her eyes scanned the words. Her name was there. So was the phrase, credible grounds for systemic suppression of original authorship and intent. They used my phrase, Maya whispered. Clara smiled. They had to. No one else knew how to say it. Later that night, Maya called a number she had deleted years ago. It rang 4 times. Then a quiet voice answered. Layla? Maya said. There was a pause. Mom? Maya nearly dropped the phone. I wanted you to know I'm still here. I know, Layla said. You do? I saw the video, Layla replied. I watched it 100 times. Maya's voice cracked. I wasn't supposed to exist, baby. Not in their systems, not in their story. But I do. And I missed you every single day. Another pause. Then, I'm proud of you. Maya closed her eyes. Snow began falling again, and for the first time, it didn't feel cold. It arrived on the desk of Tribunal Chair Renata Voss at precisely 8:03 a.m. A single-page diagram, hand-drawn, scanned and submitted anonymously. But the signature at the bottom, faint and unmistakable, M. Carter. Voss narrowed her eyes. The diagram wasn't legal text. It wasn't a memo nor a whistleblower document. It was something stranger. A recursive structure, spiraling outward like a Mandelbrot set, except overlaid with legal logic gates, not mathematical functions. At its core, a phrase written in Maya's hand. Bias is a function of silence. Accountability is a function of design. By midday, copies had reached 3 committees and 2 independent watchdog groups. No one could quite explain what it was, but no one could ignore it. The diagram mapped out how legal clauses, when intentionally miswritten, created closed loops of immunity, bubbles where harm could occur with no consequence, and how those loops were exploited by private contractors during the drafting of the AI Sovereignty Accord. In one corner of the diagram, a time-stamped clause comparison, the original, the inserted. In the other corner, a dotted line leading to a signature, Thomas Graves. Julian burst into Vivian's office. She sent a logic map. Vivian barely looked up. I know. It's already trending in academic law networks. You think she meant for this to go public? Vivian finally glanced at him. Maya Carter doesn't leak. She teaches. Maya sat quietly in a university library reading room, far from the tribunal's echoing halls. Clara was beside her, sorting through letters. Some of these are from law students, Clara said. Some are from engineers. One's from a janitor at the arbitration building who said he always believed you. Maya didn't speak. She just kept drawing. More loops, more layers. Building what looked less like an exposé and more like a curriculum. I'm not just undoing what they did, she said. I'm making sure no one can do it again. That evening, Tribunal Chair Voss called an emergency session. The clause would be retracted. The AI Sovereignty Accord would be paused. And for the first time, the tribunal would officially cite structural linguistic exploitation as a breach of international ethical law. Layla watched it unfold on live stream. From her bedroom, textbooks scattered around her, she clutched the drawing Maya had mailed to her. It wasn't just a diagram. It was a map back to her mother. And for the first time, she felt like her voice was part of something bigger than the silence she had been raised in. The world was learning to listen, because Maya Carter had made them read between the lines. The first classroom only had 3 people in it, a retired legal clerk, a freelance data scientist, and a girl who used to clean the floors of the arbitration building. Maya stood at the front, chalk in hand, drawing arcs and bridges between seemingly unrelated clauses. See this? She said, tapping a junction where a harmless preposition reversed the entire liability framework. This isn't a mistake. It's a design. They nodded, stunned. Clara, seated in the back, filmed it all. She didn't post it. Yet. By the following week, that classroom was full, and it wasn't a classroom anymore. It was a hall, then a live stream, then a network. What Maya started wasn't a protest, it was a curriculum. Called The Map for Those Who Don't Speak in Straight Lines. At the tribunal, power began to shift in imperceptible increments. Proposals once waved through were now scrutinized word by word. Junior analysts, emboldened by Maya's case, began flagging linguistic asymmetries in old policies. The walls didn't fall, but they started to echo. One night, Julian found Maya outside a small bookstore. She was staring at a children's atlas in the window. You always liked maps? He asked. I like the idea, she said, that someone cared enough to chart the unknown. He stepped closer. We reopened the Graves file. I know, she said. We think there's more. There always is, Maya replied. He hesitated. You don't hate him, do you? I did, Maya said. But hate is still a form of belief. He doesn't get that from me anymore. Julian nodded. He's scared. He should be, Maya whispered. But not of me. of silence breaking. Back in her room, Maya opened an envelope from Layla. Inside was a folded drawing, not a spiral, a tree. Each branch labeled with something Layla had overheard growing up. Things people thought she didn't understand. Words like expunged, custody, precedent, unfit. And then, at the base, you were never too much. They were never ready. Maya held the paper to her chest. By month's end, the MAP curriculum had spread to 5 countries, translated into 12 languages, and cited in 2 new bills under review. She hadn't gone viral. She'd gone rooted. Not a flash. A foundation. And from that foundation, something ancient and new began to grow. A language no longer afraid of being erased. It started with a footnote. In the revised draft of the AI Sovereignty Accord, circulated quietly to delegates before the final vote, Maya Carter's contribution was cited as Anonymous Source B. No author, no date, no acknowledgement. Just a diagram. Just her ideas. Clara saw it first. She didn't speak. She just turned the screen toward Maya. Maya stared. Her face didn't change, but her hands went still. "They're erasing you again," Clara whispered. Maya nodded. "Not me. The evidence. The lineage." She stood. "They can't kill truth, so they're starving it of origin." By noon, the hashtags had already begun. Name her, #truth has an author, #Carter clause. It wasn't Maya who started them. It was students, journalists, janitors, people who had read the map, people who knew what it cost her to draw it. That evening, someone leaked the internal emails from the tribunal. Subject line, regarding the decision to de-attribute source B. One reply said simply, "We cannot allow precedent that elevates unauthorized actors." Another, "Her name undermines institutional legitimacy." Julian was furious. "They used your knowledge but erased your name." Maya, calm. "They always did." Clara, "This time we fight." Maya smiled faintly. "No. This time we remember." That night, a wave of new diagrams appeared across social media. Not posted by Maya, posted by others, each one inspired by her method, her phrasing, her loops. In the margins of one diagram was scrawled, "Inspired by the woman who taught us to see silence." Another, "If they remove her name, we will write it louder." The next morning, a journalist from Geneva Public Radio asked Maya on air, "Does it hurt seeing your work stripped of attribution?" Maya paused. Then, "You can't erase a root by cutting the flower." The host blinked. "So what do you want?" Maya answered, "Legacy, not credit. And legacy writes itself, if truth is allowed to breathe." Back in her apartment, Maya found a letter under the door. No return address. Inside, a typed page with only one line. "Your daughter isn't the only one learning from you." Beneath it, a photocopy of Maya's original clause, this time with her name boldly written in pen, and the words, "We remembered." The hall was quiet, not solemn, expectant, like the air before the first crack of dawn. The Summit on Linguistic Equity had never convened before. It wasn't even supposed to exist. It had no charter, no anthem, no precedents. But it had a name, and it had Maya Carter. She stood beneath a wide skylight, wearing a simple gray dress and holding nothing but a folder and her breath. Across from her sat delegates from 19 countries, translators in every corner, and behind them, students, journalists, whistleblowers, janitors, daughters, people who didn't speak in straight lines. Maya didn't give a speech. She gave a map, not a diagram, a walk, through words, through meaning, through every way she'd ever seen a truth bent until it broke. Power, she said, is not in the words we write. It's in the words we refuse to question. No one clapped, not out of apathy, but reverence. At the end, she didn't say, "Thank you." She said, "Your turn." That night, Maya didn't return to her room. She walked the city with Clara. They passed by a wall covered in chalk. Names, diagrams, phrases drawn by strangers, children, scholars, ghosts, and in the center, Carter. Someone had written, "Truth loops, truth lives." Maya stared for a long time. Then she picked up a piece of chalk. She didn't draw. She wrote, Layla. Back home, in a small room filled with plants and light, Layla was already drafting a new paper. Not legal theory, not activism, just a story. About a woman who had been erased, and then remembered. Not because she shouted, but because she taught the world to listen. At the top of the page, she wrote the title, The Light We Carry, and underneath it, by Layla Carter. Some people are erased from systems, from records, even from the conversations that shape our future. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. Maya Carter represents every soul who was ever called invisible, yet kept clearing the dust off truth, one layer at a time. This story isn't just hers, it's yours. It's for everyone who was told their voice didn't belong just because it didn't speak in the approved tone. Thank you for staying until the very end. Every view, every comment, every silent eye that watched proves that we are not alone in the journey to reclaim truth. If this story touched you, please share it. Not to glorify the storyteller, but to let the light of those long ignored continue to shine. We are the echo of all that was never named, and today you chose to listen.